death, taxes, and Lane Kiffin bringing up Rat Poison at SEC Media Days. We're almost back, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't it warm your heart? It serves as like a beacon of hope that college football is on the horizon. And naturally, the Rebels coach was always going to mention Rat Poison. He's done it the last 4 years. He's learned underneath Nick Saban, who brings it up all the time. But unlike in years past, Ole Miss, I actually do think will be facing the Rat Poison this year. Because for years, they were known as being the hunted by the other programs at the high top. Well, now they are at the high top. And so they're susceptible to falling into the trap that eventually could cost them a spot in the national championship. So let's go and discuss what's going on SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification down below because we're talking SEC football nonstop. Make sure that also you're following us on socials because we're live at SEC Media Days, giving you an inside look behind the scenes. You don't want to miss out on that. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. And to keep up with the #1 source surrounding your favorite squad, not just this week, but throughout the 2024 season, visit SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by RHOBACK. Use promo code SECU for 20% off all joggers, polos, hoodies, shorts, much, much more. Look good, feel good this upcoming fall, especially on Saturdays with RHOBACK.com. So Lane Kiffin's brought this up for years. What does Rat Poison mean? It means staying the course. It means staying on task, not losing sight of what the ultimate end goal is. Don't listen to the outside noise. Don't listen to the narrative around you. This is what you have to be. This is what fans believe you should be. This is where the hype is coming. Saban did this every single year. And naturally he had to because of when you look at the Alabama squads, they were a favorite. Vegas always had them as a front runner in the SEC. They always had them as a front runner for a national championship. But this is a little bit of new territory for Ole Miss. And yes, you can say, well, this is not a new narrative for Kiffin. It is in terms of where this roster resides. They're coming off an 11-2 finish last year. They're best in program history. Nay, not best underneath Kiffin. Best in program history. They also return a slew of offensive talent, including a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback, including 2 Biletnikoff Award-winning wide receivers, and John Mackey finalist at tight end, a much more stable offensive line, and a certified defense. And they also went and they worked the transfer portal. Lane didn't mince words last year after the loss to Georgia, and he kind of doubled down earlier this week when he was at Media Days, saying, we need to be better in the trenches. I don't mean to be rude to the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, because they are good programs. There are a lot of good programs out there. But do you want to know what the biggest difference is between those levels, the FCS level, D2 level, and the SEC? Trench play. You will know immediately that kid plays in the Southeastern Conference because of how he looks based off his size. You will know he's an offensive tackle at one of these pristine schools because of his size. There's a certain brand about it. And Kiffin even brought it up. He said, Nick went after certain material guys. They had to fit certain criteria and check certain boxes for us to consider them. Well, that's kind of where he turned his attention this offseason. Yeah, you still went out and you added in a couple of wide receivers like Juice Wells. You bring in a good running back and Rashad Amos. You go fortify your secondary with Isaiah Hamilton and Key Lawrence. But you go get Walter Nolan, the #2 prospect in 2022, top defensive player. You get Princely Uwemanielen, who last year was the #1 pass rusher during his time in Florida. You still have Jared Ivey and J.J. Pegas. You also bring in Diego Pounds, the offensive tackle from North Carolina. You bolster up your trenches on both sides to where now you have this enigma internally that screams, okay, our biggest obstacle was our trench play against the big boys. Well, now we are one of the big boys. And so where's the flaw? Which leads us right back to the Rat Poison. The outside noise seeping on in, absolutely destroying the internal conflict, and eventually leading to destruction internally. There are not many flaws for this team, and I think that's where we got to start. #1, what are some Rat Poison materials that could seep their way into Oxford and Bot this upcoming fall? Where's the actual flaw? Fine, because if you're just looking at top 12 rosters going into this year, there's not a dozen teams better than the Rebels. You're going to have to replace the production lost by Quinshon Judkins. That's a given. You're going to have to replace the production lost by Dayton Wade. But you have Ulysses Bentley. You have Henry Parrish. You bring in Rashad Amos, who's coming off of a dominant year at Miami of Ohio. Juice Wells has a shot at being a 1,000-yard receiver, just like he was during his tenure at James Madison and like he almost did in South Carolina. You have another year in the offense for Trey Harris, another year for Jordan Watkins. Number two, you also have a third year for Jackson Dart. This is his offense at this point. It's no longer learning the kinks, the ins and outs, the plays, the sheet, the audibles. Now it's mastering it. Now it's elevating your status. How can you go from being a quarterback that saw your numbers improve and also decrease in turnovers to now double in that production? Now be able to live up on third down, play with the play action pass, evade pressure behind the line of scrimmage, read a defense, and be able to call the right audible that sets you up for a great success. Number three, it's a manageable schedule. That's what this all comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. I will never say the SEC is a cakewalk. Even Georgia learned the hard way last year. If you do not show up with A+ football, you are susceptible to taking it out, because you almost did against Auburn. You almost did against Missouri. You did against Alabama because you didn't play A ball. You played B+ ball. But if there ever was a preseason schedule, Ole Miss got it in the SEC. Started off the year with a game against Furman, Middle Tennessee State, at Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky, at South Carolina. I mean, if Vegas believes the way that they see Ole Miss going this year, if Vegas truly is buying the hype in what Lane Kiffin is and what Jackson Dart is and what this offense is and what this revamped defense is, that's 6-0 before you have your first real test on the road at LSU. And honestly, that's a game to where if you lose, you're not dead in the water just yet. You got to remember that one major asset that comes with being in a 12-team playoff is you don't have to go to Atlanta. You don't have to be 11-1 to get into the college football playoff. You don't have to be 12-0 and find your way into conference championship Saturdays to even be on the radar of the postseason picture. You don't, especially in the SEC. There's going to be a ton of teams that go 11-1 or 10-2 in the ACC, in the Big Ten, even in the Big 12, and you could say group of 5 schools that look really polished that are going to get shafted because the SEC is going to get in. That's just going to be the case. So you don't have to go to a postseason just to get to the postseason. You get what I'm saying here? And also, you don't have to go and win every single game. But therein is the problem. Because if that's where the rat poison sticks in. Oh, we lost to LSU. Oh, well, Baton Rouge, we've had trouble here over the last few years. On top of that, we also knew that LSU was going to be a night game. Oh, also, we beat them last year. It was a revenge game for them. We can be complacent. Well, then that trickles in. And then you play in 2 weeks Oklahoma, coming off of a bye. And then you play Arkansas. And then Georgia, and then Florida, and then Mississippi State to close out your year. And slowly, now that 11-1 record that you initially thought was going to be okay, well, now it's 9-3. And 9-3 is not guaranteeing you a spot in the postseason. It's 100% not guaranteeing you a spot. Not saying it can't happen, depending on what occurs with the rest of college football. Yeah, you'll definitely be in the running, but head-to-heads matter. And that's a big deal that wasn't brought up. Head-to-heads are going to be critical this upcoming year, especially because if Greg Sankey doesn't know what the tiebreaker is just yet. And he doesn't know when we're going to find out about a tiebreaker. So for Ole Miss this upcoming fall, the rat poison is the internal gripe. They are on the radar. For years, we've heard about Ole Miss being a good team, a solid team. Lane Kiffin's got this roster humming. They look to be taking that next step forward. Okay, well, now they have. So now, how do you avoid the outside noise the way that Alabama does? How do you avoid the pressure to live up to expectations the way Georgia does? How do you find a way to have a great offense that is combated by a solid defense the way that LSU should have last year but didn't? That's where an Ole Miss roster is right now. And Texas and Oklahoma joining the fold only adds more pressure to it. You got to realize, whether or not Oklahoma goes 8-4, 6-6, or 11-1 this year, it still is Oklahoma. That is going to be a huge matchup for any opponent this upcoming fall because if they have the pieces. The question is the offensive line. And if that comes around, well, Bill Beatonbow is automatically going to become the highest paid offensive line coach in college football. But on top of that, there you go. The way we talk about Alabama just unveiling the mask and being the dark horse in the college football playoff, that's going to be the Sooners. So you can't get complacent. Ole Miss actually, for the first time in the Lane Kiffin era, truly has a target on its back. And so when you hear him talk about the rat poison, when you hear him talk about how this could be a year where they can't get complacent, where they have everything in line, where they know that they're good, he buys into it. And I think everyone inside that locker room does too, which is why they went out and they got the right players, but great players. But they had such a great locker room that was designed at the very start of the year to set the tone when people walked into the building. They were always going to be content. But just in case, if Lane Kiffin is watching this video, hi Lane, this is my rat poison propellant, patent pending, still getting a few tests out. But what this is supposed to do is make sure that it evades all outside noise. So, gotcha, Lane. Gotcha, Rebels Nation. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you actually believe that Lane Kiffin and the Rebels are facing the rat poison this upcoming fall, unlike in years past, or do you believe it's just a hoax? Let me also know what you want to see next. Make sure that you like, review, hit subscribe down below because we're talking college football every single day leading up to week 1 and well throughout the chaotic 2024 season. Download the podcast version of the show. Leave a 5-star review if you love this type of content. Leave a 1-star review if you hate this type of content. And for the #1 source of all things SEC related, visit SECUnfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks. Later.